Okay, I know I have not been regular with my reviews. Trust me, it's been a bumpy ride. But now that school's officially done with me, I'll be more regular with my reviews. I solemnly swear I'm back. What's up, y'all? This is Preet's Perspective with me, Preeta. So, today we'll be talking about Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, which is directed by Christopher McQuarrie, stars the one and only Tom Cruise, and this is the final installment in the Mission Impossible franchise that was started all the way in 1996. Damn! It's almost 20 years ago. I mean, technically it will turn 20 years old in 2026, so missed opportunity, Tom Cruise. So the story follows 2 months after the events of Dead Reckoning, which if you haven't seen, might as well you see it just to catch up with what's going on. The IMF has regrouped themselves to catch Gabriel, who's the main antagonist there, as well as fight an AI-based villain called the Entity, which threatens to take control of the nuclear arsenal of the world and possibly initiate a nuclear world war. And that more or less forms the crux of the story. So let's talk about what's actually good in this movie, and let's start with the obvious. Tom Cruise, am I right? I mean, the man is literally 60 years old, and yet he has the balls to be hanging from a biplane doing underwater sequences. Meanwhile, me at 24, I'm still looking for a job. YouTube? Please hire me! Pretty please! Anyway, back to Cruise. I really love the fact that he's so committed in giving us that edge of the seat thrilling experience, especially when you know that the film has been shot on IMAX approved cameras to sort of give us that big screen IMAX experience, which I highly recommend that you see the film in IMAX, the way it was meant to be seen, the way it was shot. And speaking of the way it was shot, I have to give a huge shout out to the cinematography in this movie, especially during the underwater sequence. I feel like that was one of my favorite sequences in the entire movie. Hell, it even matches up to the ranks of Cruise hanging off Burj Khalifa, jumping off a mountain cliff with a motorcycle. It's right there. It's right at those ranks. I mean, when you see it, you'll know it. The entire sequence is just so hypnotic. It's so ethereal, and coupled with the score by Max Aruj, for a moment you just forget that you're actually a part of a high-stakes mission out here because you're so immersed in the surroundings and the sort of atmosphere that is created in that sequence. I feel like that I can talk about that sequence all day. I mean, chef's kiss to that sequence. I also want to give a shout out to the supporting characters because I feel like everybody gets their moment of glory, especially those who come back from previous films. I won't reveal who, just to make sure no spoilers are given. But yeah, Haley Atwell as Grace. You got Simon Pegg as Benji, who's an all-time favorite. Ving Rhames as Luther, and even oh my gosh, there are so many supporting characters that I want to give a shout out to, and I feel like everybody puts their best foot forward in sort of matching what Tom Cruise is trying to do, and I really appreciate the fact that everybody has their moment of glory, everybody gets their moment where they shine particularly. And I also want to give a shout out to Pom Clementine. Holy shit, she's a badass. Okay, now let's get to the nitty-gritty stuff, and let me tell you why Final Reckoning is not quite the finale we wanted. I mean, when you're expecting a finale, you're expecting to be emotional, you're expecting to be, it's an end of an era. I mean, here you have an almost 20-year-old franchise almost coming to an end, and yet it sort of leaves you very dissatisfied. And it leaves you like sort of wanting for more, and not in a good way. For example, what the hell was happening in the first half? Like, the humor was unbalanced and sort of misplaced. The writing was a little off there. It literally starts off with a montage of every mission that Hunt has possibly done, and how it sort of leads to this big mission that they are now faced with. I wish they hadn't done that. I wish that montage was sort of put in the end, and us as audiences, we would still have that opportunity in the beginning to sort of like try to connect the dots with like minimal flashback sequences from like previous films. And I also feel like the first half really bored me out when they were sort of like just trying to stretch out what's exactly at stake with the mission. So yeah, that kind of felt a little off to me. And also I feel like Mission Impossible was trying, at least this film was trying to be a lot of things at once. At one time, it's trying to address the reality that we are living in right now, where AI is becoming a really big thing, and it's becoming the topic of discussion for almost every area in the market. How is it going to take over our jobs? Is it going to take over? Is it going to become this like big existential threat to humanity? Is it going to be a political problem for us to address? And yet it sort of falls short of actually getting into the depth of this is the world we are living now, and what can we actually do to stop it, to rather control it, if not stop. And it tries to be like hilarious, it tries to be emotional, it tries to be, it sort of bombards you with all of these moments all at once that you barely even get a second to breathe, and you're like, oh, in one sequence you're supposed to like chuckle a little, and the next sequence you're supposed to like weep a little because, well, a huge character is now no longer serving you. So I felt that there's a misbalance of emotional moments that sort of put me off guard, so that by the time the second half came in, you're already sort of in a very irritated state of mind, saying like, what the hell is going on? And then the second half starts and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to like connect those dots a little. So I wish that misbalance was not there, and it sort of like carried it on in like one streamlined fashion. So that was a bit off-putting for me. Also, I sort of want to address this debate on who's doing IMAX right, because, well, like I said, the film is shot for IMAX. It is shot using IMAX approved RE digital cameras, which is easy for them to, change the aspect ratio for certain sequences to 1.90 is to 1. So given that there's been a huge talk about Tom Cruise relying on the IMAX format to give us this very grand spectacle on the big screen and sort of like keep us very engaged, there's also been a huge debate on who's exactly doing it right, who's exactly using IMAX to sort of give us not only a big spectacle experience, but also sort of make us emotionally invested in the story. And I feel like Cruise has almost got it, and yet he hasn't. Like, if you're only going to increase the aspect ratio to like the stunt sequences, or to only like elaborate certain sequences which are like in the headquarters or in like a close setting, you're kind of not doing it right, if that makes sense. Because only when you're increasing it, if you're only increasing it for the stunt sequences or the close combat sequences, you're like, oh, it's big action time, and now bing bang boom, you're a part of an action sequence. Not right now. IMAX is supposed to give you a fully immersive experience, and not just visually, but emotionally as well. And recently, we saw this happen with Sinners, we saw this happen with Oppenheimer, which were entirely shot on IMAX film cameras. And if you think about it, let's take a recent example like Sinners. If you think about it, Sinners literally has, if it has like a proper stunt sequence, it's only like towards, I want to say the climax, it's only like towards the climax, sort of, and then again, it also has the surreal montage. It has like, almost like 60% of the film is shot on an IMAX 70mm film, and there are certain sequences which Coogler would have easily not shot on IMAX, but yet he did. For example, the opening sequence when Sammy is entering the church for the first time. He could have easily shot that on an Ultra Panavision normal camera. Instead, he shoots it on IMAX because he wants us to sort of get emotionally invested and be a part of this thing, and be a part of something bigger than us. And I also want to talk about the surreal footage in Sinners, where the aspect ratio gradually increases to the 1.40:1 ratio. When that particular sequence, the aspect ratio changes, you're like, you're literally sucked into something. And when I think of similar sequences in the Mission Impossible franchise, Fallout actually did that. Fallout, when if you guys recall the Halo jump, the aspect ratio changed. It went from it gradually increased to the 1.90:1 ratio, and then just like randomly switched to IMAX all of a sudden. When you're like gradually increasing the aspect ratio, you're literally like sucking the audience in and being like, okay, now shit's about to hit the fan. You're about to see something which is beyond your wildest expectations. Here, the sequences when it randomly shifts to IMAX, it's sort of very abrupt, and it's sort of very like, you're sort of disrupted in your viewing experience. And because all of a sudden you're going from like this peephole view to something big. So in that way, I feel like Cruise nearly got it. I just wish that he had sort of capitalized on how much IMAX can bring out the emotionality of the story, and not just focus on the spectacle part of bringing this grand of a story forward. So overall, I feel like Final Reckoning was a good Mission Impossible movie. It had the potential of becoming something even better, and it almost feels like half the film was mostly directed by Tom Cruise and not exactly by Christopher McQuarrie, because if you look at Rogue Nation, if you look at Fallout, which are the two films that Christopher McQuarrie directed in the franchise, you see that there's going to be a stark difference with the way he treated those films compared to Final Reckoning. You find that everything is just going with even the humor, the emotionality, the stunt sequences. Everything is there for a purpose, and it sort of goes in a very streamlined fashion, which I felt was sort of missing in Final Reckoning. So overall, I'm gonna give it 3.5 stars. And once again, thank you, Tom Cruise, for your service. And now that, well, the Mission Impossible franchise is over for now, how about we get that Les Grossman movie? Please, Tom Cruise, Les Grossman spinoff. Please, I'm begging you. This is what we want. And on that note, follow me on Letterboxd, on That Filmy Chick, for more such reviews. Like, share, subscribe, do the whole shebang. You can also follow me on Instagram at Mukherjee3501 for more such reviews. And I promise, once again, I'm gonna be more regular with my reviews, so stay tuned for more. This is Priya's Perspective signing off. Do let me know in the comments what you thought about Final Reckoning. Bye!